Hi, welcome to Astrotology and the Sabian Smoosh. I'm Evalyne, and I'll be your guide as we walk the tarot path, one decan at a time, using the astrological correspondences of the Golden Dawn as the compass for the journey and the Sabian symbols as the map. Now, some people may not be familiar with either body of work, so those of you who are, bear with me while I discuss the questions that I had in the beginning. So the first question was, what exactly is a correspondence? Well, correspondences are connections made between thoughts and things that have similar characteristics, even when the objects are completely different. For example, apples and dates are completely different in taste and texture, but are similar because they both grow on trees. So that's the correspondence, growing on trees. Now, what does this have to do with tarot? Well, tarot definitions, as we know them today, were developed using correspondences between multiple different things. These correspondences were synthesized within the mystical practices of the Golden Dawn in the late 19th century. Now, for those who don't know, the Golden Dawn was a secret society that studied the mysticism found in historical literature, both religious and non religious, during the time when witchcraft itself was decriminalized, but the witchy practices were considered fraudulent. But the Golden Dawn borrowed heavily from the works of Attila or Jean-Baptiste Alliette, the founder of the Nouveau École de Magie in 1790, and also from Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa, who wrote the three books of occult philosophy in 1533. This secret society searched for correspondences and similarities between different divination systems and the mystical practices of these books. The tarot actually was how they house these things, so it became a de facto database warehousing all the correspondences discovered during astrology, Kabbalah, and numerology studies, as well as cartomatic studies. Now, although the primary focus of the Golden Dawn seemed to be working with information stored in the majors, as they followed some of their workings, most of what we know about the small cards also comes from this body of research. Now, a lot of good resources exist if you want to learn more about the history of the society, but the purpose of this work is to develop the astrological tarot correspondences created by the Golden Dawn. But instead of rehashing the materials that we've already gone over, we're going to analyze and incorporate the messages found in the Sabian symbols to enhance the meanings of the decans and, in turn, the associated cards. Now, I will be posting links to the books and in the notes. And the next question I had was, what are decans? Followed closely by, what do they have to do with destiny? The word decan itself is an astrological term for 10 degrees of the zodiac wheel. The word decan has its roots in the number 10, just like decade or decimal. The placement of a decan is not random. A birth chart is normally drawn in a 360-degree circle that is divided by the 12 signs equally. 360 divided by 12 equals 30 degrees per sign. The degrees are then divided by the 10 degrees in a decan, which creates 3 decan segments per sign. And somehow this all manages to correspond relatively well with the movement of the stars. The Golden Dawn fit the minor arcana into the decans. But wait, you say there are 36 decans? The minors are 40 cards. What happened was the society decided that the aces were elementals and removed them because they had no astrological correspondences. So the cards used for the decans are now numbered 2 to 10 per suit. Up now about destiny. The soul is destined to be born, and the soul is destined to return to source. Life is what happens between when the soul comes into this life and the stars align. And that spot on the birth chart is believed to determine how one tackles the challenges of this lifetime. And that happens in the decan. But the person isn't just born into a decan. They're also born into a certain degree of that decan. I mean, there are 10 of them. And that's where the Sabian symbols come into play. The Sabian symbols are a relatively new concept that didn't exist until 1925, when in San Diego, California, actually Balboa Park, great museums, where Mark Edmund Jones, an American spiritualist and astrologer, worked with a woman named Elise Wheeler, who was handicapped, and also a clairvoyant, to find a set of words and images to go with every degree of the zodiac. What we're going to do is we're going to explore the Sabian symbols for the first decan of Aquarius from January 20th to roughly January 29th, because that's what we're doing in this recording. And this is where we will also find a story of faith, rebellion, and healing. First degree of Aquarius, it goes from 0 to 1, and it's represented by an old Adobe mission. What is important now is the persistence of faith, no matter how simple or far-flung from its source, in the better or spiritual side of life and humanity, and in your constant striving toward higher aims. So your issue is basically to do with the state of your faith and how true you are being to it, especially when you go out on a limb. The second degree, from 1 to 2, is an unexpected thunderstorm. You are or will be encountering the fact that life always has something in store for us that we had not quite accounted for or prepared for. And that is the natural tendency of things to come to a head or crisis sooner. Now, experiencing or dealing with the shock or unexpected requires a sudden upheaval and release of tension with all the alarm and inconvenience this might involve. But ultimately, or rather because of it, peace and calm will reign again. The third degree of Aquarius is a deserter from the Navy. This represents circumstances urging an outright rebellion against the status quo. And Aquarians are all about rebelling against the status quo, especially with respect to what is generally regarded as morally unacceptable. No matter what others think, Aquarian of this degree is driven to take the consequences as the price one pays for being true to themselves. Degree number 4 is a Hindu healer. Matters regarding the object of your concern will get better as long as every individual thing involved is recognized for the vital part it plays in creating and maintaining the welfare of the whole, and is given attention where needed. This alludes to Ayurvedic medicine or any other method of holistic healing, because Aquarians are healers, and also to the time and discipline it takes to learn and put it into practice. You need to know how everything interacts, because this is the precondition to improving the matters at hand. And this is not just about healing, though. Everything in life, if you go through life and take into account everything that can happen, then you're more prepared for when something goes wrong that you didn't account for. Backup plans are backup plans. Now, the 5th degree of Aquarius, from 4 to 5, is a council of the ancestors. This is where you get your information. All that has gone before you is now what guides and supports you at hand. This is infinitely a long-standing spiritual, tribal, familiar, or personal line that you may continually feel integrated with and draw strength and approval from. This includes, Wiccan traditions, and Viking traditions, all that kind of stuff. These are also part of your ancestral being. Here is a tradition whose weight and history provides a body of knowledge, wisdom, and security for you and yours. Always go back to the ancestors. The 6th degree, from 5 to 6, is a performer in a mystery play. Your situation suggests that you can and should now tune into some feeling, memory, or prompting deep within you and give it an expression any way as possible. This enactment of inner realities can be personal or concerning some literary or mythological work. Even though these realities seem vague and indistinct, by daring to be free enough to enact them physically and or verbally, you'd be greatly surprised by what happens or comes out of you. So what part are you playing in this play of your life that we call your life? That's what this is about. Who do you want to be? The 7th, Aquarius in the 7th degree, from 6 to 7, is a child emerging from an eggshell. It's kind of a cute picture, isn't it? You are assured of continual self-sustainment as long as you venture forth into the world when sustenance from one source is all used up, and then go in search of another. Affirming to yourself that it is a caring universe ensures that it is so. Isn't that beautiful? The universe cares as long as you believe it does. And now we go to the eighth degree. When the eighth degree, we have beautifully gowned figures. Now, eighth is the seven to eighth degree. Beautifully gowned wax figures. In life, you find that on one hand, you have to take on the form that enables you to function successfully or at all in the world. It can be a hard lesson for the idealist to realize that very few people can get through this life without having to play the game and being a part of life's masquerade. On the other hand, you can become constricted and false as a result of conforming to the rules and perceived expectations of society or whatever your situation happens to be. Isn't that so true? We all have to put on a mask. We go to work, we're one person. We go home, we're another person. You have to remember, sometimes you have to be you. But in order to get ahead, you have to play the game. Otherwise, you get left behind, made fun of, bullied, all that stuff. So remember, we're always playing that game. Now, an Aquarius in the ninth degree is a flag turned into an eagle. I had a hard time on Night Cafe, where I got all of my images from, trying to create a flag turning into an eagle that wasn't an American flag and a bald eagle. I mean, it didn't matter what I typed in. I was looking for something more general, and I thought a pirate's flag, yes. And the golden eagle, well, it's a golden bald eagle. Best I could do was what I was getting. But much more universal than I liked it. Okay. So the ninth degree is again from 8 to 9. And you will find out about something by living it. Kind of like I lived the nightmare of trying to make my image the way I wanted it. Your issue is inevitability. What remains to be done is that the transformation of ideas or reputation into real power and hard fact has to be maintained and lived up to in its own right. This symbol, therefore, could simply be a confirmation of whatever you already had in mind. And how true in tarot that is. Sometimes it is just a confirmation. So we go to the 10th degree, which is from 9 to 10. And it says a popularity that proves to be ephemeral. Now, ephemeral is one of those words I am not sure of. But apparently, when we're reading it, the definition comes through. You are in the process of discovering what has lasting value or appeal, probably through discovering what has not that appeal. But whether it's the fickleness of the general public or of one's peer group, it's your sense of genuine feeling and therefore self-worth that counts in the end. How true that is. Okay, so there are some core themes that these degrees reveal. Faith and resilience, integrity versus conformity, connection and tradition, expression and experience. Basically, the symbols smushed together say that people born in this decan require steadfast faith and knowing where they want to go. They draw their strength from their traditions and live their inner truth because that enables them to navigate life's inevitable shocks, which will relieve the pressure to conform and in turn allows the transformation of abstract ideals into real world power. And we're going back to the Golden Dawn, who assigned the 5 of Swords for this decan and told us that it represents defeat. Isn't that interesting? Defeat. What do they mean by that? Well, A. Waite, the creator of the pictorial key, where most of our keywords come from, has this to say about the cards. A disdainful man looks after 2 retreating and dejected figures. Their swords lie upon the ground. He carries 2 others on his left shoulder and a third sword in his right hand and pointed at the earth. He is master in possession of the field. with divinatory meanings of degradation, destruction, revocation, infamy, dishonor, loss, with variants and analogs of these. And reversed, it means the same, but more brutal and obsequious. Now, whatever that last word was, I probably said it wrong, and I don't know what it means. Obsequies. I have no idea. He did not mention the word defeat because at this point in time, he was probably still trying to hide some of the Golden Dawn secrets. So basically, the defeat is a breakdown of the armed peace, and it points to degradation and destruction. And now the next thing is Aleister Crowley, who is called the card defeat as well, following through with the Golden Dawn meanings. And he says that there has been insufficient power to maintain the armed peace of the four. The quarrel has actually broken out, and this must mean defeat. Anytime someone says must, I question it. Now, the next question, though, speaking of questions, is where did they get all of this from? Many people believe that the Five of Swords is the equivalent of this Five of Spades. The correspondence is mentioned in Antoine Court de Geblin's Monde Primitif, Volume 8. The cartomancy definition of the Five of Spades says this card represents conflict, struggle, hollow victory, betrayal, deception, and mental strain. But the defeat of the Five of Swords isn't necessarily a failure of the person. That word's never mentioned. It is most likely the price one pays for being true to oneself in a world of masquerades. You are learning to navigate the masquerade of society. The lesson is to know when to pick up your swords and when to let the peer group walk away. We do this by realizing our self-worth is the only thing with lasting value. Now, the Decan is also associated with the Knight of Swords if you look at the wheel. The Knight of Swords is someone who is not afraid of chasing his dreams, but may overthink the next step, or who may try to do all the things and get overwhelmed. The Knight may look like he thrives on chaos, but that chaos has a purpose, until he gets bored and needs a new challenge. Now, or frustrated even. Well, the Tarot Majors directly associated with this card from that wheel are the Star, of course, the Emperor, and the Empress. The Golden Dawn wheel also used to use the traditional visible planets, since Uranus and Neptune were relatively new at the time, 1781 and 1846, and Pluto hadn't been discovered because it wasn't 1930 yet. The wheel attaches the World, which represents Saturn, and the Fool representing Air. These are the underlying tarot themes of this Decan: searching, creation, destruction, and redemption. Well, the searching, this is the unresolvable quest of the Knight of Swords, who never stops following the shining star. He's driven to venture forth into the world, continually seeking the lasting values of the Empress hidden beneath the surface of the social masquerade that the Fool has already cast off because he has his faith in that higher power. Now, creation is where the Empress casts her sphere of influence. Creation isn't random. It requires a comprehensive discipline to process the vague ideas into existence. It also that's Kabbalistic, by the way. It also recognizes how every small part of the journey interconnects to create a vision, and that vision is supported by tradition and ancestral wisdom. The Five of Swords also plays a part here in this next section, the destruction. The Five of Swords has a destructive power, causing either a breakdown of peace or sudden upheaval. And that power fuels the sacred rebellion needed to shake up the status quo and to evaluate any toxicity that happens when one chooses to be true to themselves, regardless of the consequence or the defeat perceived by others. Yes, when you start living your own life, there is toxicity. You lose friends. You gain new friends who understand you. That's the circle of life, always circling around. Good, bad, good, bad, good, bad. And you have to let go of those things that no longer serve a purpose. And that's when we get into redemption. Redemption happens when all the chaos and conflict of the swords find their purpose. When you meet your tribe, when you meet your goals, when you do stuff. When it is discovered that your inner integrity is worth more than the public approval. Peace is found because living in one spiritual truth, even though the outside world has changed. It seems that the lesson for the Aquarius One is in learning to manage our thoughts and actions when conflicting demands happen. Now for the smoosh, making all of this symbology fit into a corresponding tarot card for the Decan, which would be the Five of Swords. In my mind, a person born in the first decan of Aquarius tends to have crisis of faith when in pursuit of their goals. Life as an Aquarius One seems to be filled with continual unexpected complications, creating a Five of Sword landscape where defeat doesn't always mean failure, but it is the price paid for rebelling against societal norms when you're following your own path. Instead of becoming frustrated with the status quo, one must first learn the game so as to know which rules can be changed, which rules can be broken, and of course, which ones make sense, because there's always a rule that makes sense. The majority of life's problems come from ignoring the small stuff. An Aquarius One will get better results when they consider everything, no matter how insignificant that plays a part in their vision. This includes any evaluating of traditions or personal experiences for the potential to help or hinder forward movement. So pare away the fluff, find the core value of the information you have so that you can move the big stuff forward with real power shored up by integrity. As we exit the path of the first decan of Aquarius, remember the Five of Swords is a gateway, not the final destination. It acts as a bridge between what was and what can be. The Five asks you, what is the masquerade you're performing? And are you ready to be real, to take off that mask? So this week, try to find one small, quiet truth that you've been hesitant to share and give it a physical form. Speak it, write it, act on it. Don't worry if this truth has left you feeling like you're the one who is walking away defeated. That's the truth that you have to work with. The unhealed cuts in your self image arose from the war with your shadow side. When you bring your inner reality into the world, you can move beyond the hollow victory of the shadow and into the light and the true power of your soul's destiny. Thank you for walking the tarot path with me. And until next time,